Hello and welcome to another Sprues and Brews Necromunda review. Today we're having a look at House of Artifice, the latest in this series of books for Necromunda. So far we've had Goliath, Escher and Orlok covered. Now it is the time for Vansar to get their supplement. So if you've not seen these before, they are, for want of a better word, a codex for Necromunda. It gives you all the details you need to create your gang, loads of supplemental content that can be used by any gang, and yeah, some really fun lore and information about the gang themselves. So yeah, House of Artifice, like I say, it covers the Vansar. So these are the kind of like technologically adept gang in the game. They manufacture a lot of weapons on the planet, and yeah, there's a dark secret to where they're getting this technology from. So yeah, we'll have a look through, see what's inside, have a look at some of the changes, and check out some of the new kits as well. Big thanks to Games Workshop for sending us this out a little bit early for us to have a look at as well. So yeah, let's crack it open and have a look inside. So as ever, presentation is really good in these books. Lots of really nice kind of line illustrations and exploded diagrams and stuff like that really captures the vibe of the houses. I always got a bit of a Deus Ex vibe from Vansar, one of my favourite video games, and it does make me chuckle at Cyberpunk's out pretty much the same week as this book, because they're very much the same kind of vibes in them. So yeah, the opening of the book essentially takes us through the history of Vansar, tells us a little bit about them, who they are, and what they've been up to. So essentially, their ancestors, I suppose, were on a colony ship called the Vansar that was headed towards Necromunda. It crash landed, but on board was an STC, a standard template construct machine, that has been jealously guarded by the Vansar since, and they're using it for their advancement on Necromunda. The Adeptus Mechanicus isn't terribly happy, and they would not approve if they knew about it, and even Lord Helmore's kind of covering up the tech heresy that these guys are doing, which in game terms is cool. It means they've got some really kind of exotic prototype kind of gear, and while they are producing a lot of the weaponry and technology on Necromunda, they're keeping the choice cuts for themselves. So yeah, you find out all about that, all the different kind of subcults and different circles of knowledge, because obviously it's only going to be the guys at the top who know fully about the STC and what's going on, and the rather unfortunate side effect that the radiation from this device is slowly killing them as well. So yeah, all really cool. But yeah, some gorgeous artwork in there, some great lore, and it really does kind of like kind of pads out what we know about them. It gives you a lot more inspiration for your games when you're creating your gangs, and for anyone who's like running a Necromunda campaign as well, being able to look through these various House of books and get a feel for each of the different gangs and their motivations and their backgrounds. I think that's something really cool, and yeah, I do think that the House of series is one of the best things to happen to Necromunda for a long time. So yeah, really excited to see where it goes. So on to the actual gang list itself. Format wise, pretty much the same as we've seen in the other House of books. They've taken what was in Gangs of the Underhive and expanded it, giving us a lot more options. I think we only had a 2-page spread in Gangs of the Underhive of Vansar, where now we've got a meaty chunk with lots of different options on here. Composition wise, these are replicated pretty much across all of the House of books, just spelling out what gear set you can give to people, what happens if a leader dies, how many of your gang can not have the kind of ganger keyword. So yeah, that's all pretty much the same, nothing too different there. Going on to the leader, who's now called the Vansar Prime. Profile and points, exactly the same as he was in Gangs of the Underhive. Where there have been changes is in the equipment list. So he can now take a las cannon. There's options for field armour now, so conversion fields, displacer fields, refractor fields he can take. There's a few little tweaks on the personal equipment as well, so like Medicaid kits. So not massive changes, but it does give you more heavy weapon options, because I know that's one of the appeals of Vansar, being able to kind of trick out your guys with the heavier end of gear. So yeah, option for las cannon straight in your initial gang list is really good. Now obviously that's going to cost you a fair few credits, but if you wanted to, you could go fairly heavy weapon heavy in here. So no major changes there. Oh, apart from the Cyberachnids. So we'll have a look at the profile in a little bit, but these are pretty much a nightmarish combination of a spider, technologically altered and turned into a horrific murder beast with a webber. So yeah, you don't be messing with them. They can take up to 3 of them at 75 points each as well. So again, I think your Vansar gang is going to run quite expensive, but be fairly well kitted out, which is pretty cool. We then have the Augments. This is the old champion profile. Again, points wise, stat line wise, this is exactly the same. Like with the leader, there's a few tweaks to the equipment list. Again, they can take las cannons, they can take conversion field, they can't take the other bits of field armour that the other guy could take, and they can also take the Medicaid kit. I think there's a few other things that have changed in the personal equipment. Nothing massive, but a few other options if you're building your gang. And they can also take 2 Cyberachnids as well, so lots of them. Now there isn't a kit for them at the minute. Hopefully we see something from Forge World soon, because yeah, they're going to be a horrific model and I can't wait to see what they do. So next up we've got the Archaeotech. This is one of the new kits that can be built from the new plastic frame that's coming out alongside this. These are unusual. So it's another champion, but they can't issue group orders. Instead, they get Technica upgrades. They get 1 for free at the start of the game, and as the campaign progresses, they only pay half the cost when they want to upgrade them or install new ones. So we'll look at Technica later on in the book, but essentially they can, again, if you think Deus Ex or Cyberpunk, they can replace their organic elements with cybernetic replacements. So if you get injured, you can swap out your eye for a cybernetic one. And yeah, they've got different buffs associated to them, and they have 3 different levels of this. We'll have a look at that in a bit more detail later on, but these guys kind of specialise in that. So I think these are going to be the guys that you kind of trick out with all these upgrades and stuff, and yeah, some of them are pretty powerful. You can also turn these into a bit of a close combat specialist as well. With the spider rig, I think it's got grapple that gives them +1 strength. They can take 3 digilasers as well. They've already got 2 attacks, so you can get them pretty good combat-wise, where traditionally Vansar is quite a shooty force. So yeah, these guys will be interesting to see how they do. And then next we have got the Neotech. This is the other new model from the plastic kit. These are essentially Juves on hoverboards. Yeah, really cool. They're quite expensive at 70 credits, so again, you're not going to get many models in your force for your credits, but they do have some tricks. So the hoverboard that they're on basically gives them +2 movement. It allows them to move up and down different levels of terrain without any penalty. They can move across any terrain apart from impassable terrain with no penalty, and they can never fall. They can never fall over. So really, really cool. They're going to be able to jump around the battlefield and get to kind of really difficult to get to places. They also get a cool new action. So it's like a drive-by shooting, I guess. As an action, they can move over an enemy target, make a normal move, and make a single, I think it's a strength 4 attack with knockback against that target. So yeah, pretty cool. They'll be able to do some disruption to your enemy forces while the rest of your guys with heavier weapons are getting into position. So yeah, I really rate these. They are on the expensive side at 70 credits, but they're going to be really quick, and you can probably make them quicker as well with some of the Cybernetic upgrades as well. So yeah, really like these guys, really like the models as well. I know it's been kind of a mixed feedback on them, but I think they look really tasty. So next up we have the Tech, which is the new name for the Ganger. Profile and points wise, again, these are exactly the same. There has been a bit of a change in the specialist though. Previously, when you created your gang, one Ganger could take a special weapon, and then as you added new members to your gang, they could take special weapons. That has changed. Instead, when you create it, one Ganger can become a specialist, and you can use upgrades to get further gang member specialists as the campaign goes on. The specialists have access to special and heavy weapons as well. So you've got another heavy weapon you can stick into your force there. So, you know, between your champions, your free specialist you get at the start, your leader being able to take las cannons, yeah. If you want to, you can go all out with heavy weapons. So you're probably not going to have many points left to spend on your gang, but if you wanted to go all on the big guns, then yeah, you can definitely do that. So yeah, pretty cool. And then we have the Juves, the subtechs they're called now. Again, no massive changes there. The only thing I really spotted was that previously they couldn't take an item that was above 20 credits. That restriction's no longer in place, so you can gear them up how you like, as long as it's from the Vansar subtech equipment list. So yeah, pretty tasty. And then finally we have the Cyberachnid. Yeah, like I say, whatever this thing is, part spider, part monstrous mechanical Vansar headed beastie. It can climb up walls, it causes fear, it's got a web projector. Yeah, they sound pretty cool. I really want to see the model because it looks horrific from that picture, and I can't wait to see what Forge World do. I assume this is going to be a Forge World piece. The previous gangs got their exotic beasts on the same frame as the new model types. That's not the case with the Vansar. So yeah, I'm interested to see what they do with them because I think they'll look really cool. So next up we've got the details of all the hangers-on and brutes. So again, much in the same format as in the other books in the series. It will list all the hangers-on available to the gang. Some of them will be Vansar specific, where others are available for any gang. They tend to reprint a lot of the generic ones that are available to everyone in here, just so that you've got all the hangers-on that you can take in the book. So we won't spend too much long on the ones that have been repeated, but we'll have a look at some of the new ones. So the Cogitated Core Servitor is a new Vansar only hanger-on. Costs 100 credits, which is a bit on the pricey side, but is a really good kind of defensive unit. So if you're defending in a game, essentially it's a servitor with all the controls of all the system and the lighting and all the defences. So it can turn the lights on or off at will, which is pretty cool. Before the battle you get to set up D3 extra booby traps, and it has a battlefield-wide -1 intelligence modifier to enemies that are trying to do any intelligence actions, so accessing terminals or bypassing loot casket locks. So yeah, really good as a defensive choice. I think that's going to be pretty fun, especially being able to mess with the lights. I know Delac have been able to do that in some gang tactics cards, so having some kind of counterplay against that is pretty cool. Like I say, it's Vansar only, so a pretty fun one. 100 credits is on the pricey side, but yeah, I can see that being quite useful in games where you're defending. The Tech Merchant's another new one. He is available for any gang, but it costs twice as much for non-Vansar gangs, so 80 credits for any gang, 40 credit for Vansar. And yeah, this guy is basically a gear broker. He can make rare and illegal weapons easier to get hold of. He can reduce the cost of items in the trading post in the black market by D3 times 10 to a minimum of 20. So yeah, really, he can kind of pay for himself in 2 games with that discount on the gear, and you're going to get it as well more often. So yeah, pretty good for 40 credits. Another good one is the Data Scrivener. At 20 credits, when you're making an intelligence test, you can roll an additional D6 and discard the lowest result. So that works as quite a good counter against this thing. And yeah, for 20 credits seems a bargain really. So hopefully we'll see some models for these guys soon. I don't think we've seen the rules for them in any other supplements. The rest of the book is pretty much stuff reprinted here. So we've got the Ammo Jacks, you've got the Rogue Docs, Dome Runners, Sloppers, Gang Lookout, we've all seen before. Moving on to the Brutes, Vansar get a really cool looking Brute unit. So the Arachnid, which is, I don't know, if a Dreadnought and Dr. Octopus had a baby. Big kind of reinforced multi-limbed servo suit for your guys, 240 credits. By default it's just got 4 kind of close combat arms. You can swap those out for further guns. with its superior weapons array rule, it can make 2 shoot actions a turn as well. So yeah, I really like this guy. I want to get one because it looks amazing. And again, you've got the options. You can either go for close combat, fighty, brute, or go all out with its shooting abilities. So yeah, I like this. I'm looking forward to seeing what the final model looks like as well, because if it's anything like that artwork, it's going to be amazing. We then get some stuff that we've seen again in other books, so Ambots, as I think all gangs can take them. We've got the Servitor Ogrins again. Now I know a lot of people are frustrated sometimes that they reprint some of this stuff. Personally, I think it's quite handy, so you're not having to take multiple books with you. And at the end of the day, it only tends to be a handful of pages that are reprinted in these books anyway. I'd much rather it be a slightly thicker book and include those in it, rather than having to bring another book along for my games. Again, like with the other books, we have some hired guns. These are much the same, so you've got your Hive Scum, you've got your Bounty Hunters, and you've got your House Agents. What is new is, oh, the Archaeotech Arm as well. This guy's cool. Basically, he requires the consciousness of one of your gangers, who he temporarily borrows over the course of the game. However, there is a chance at the end of the game he steals the consciousness of your guy, just leaving him brain dead, basically. So he's got kind of question marks for those stats he takes from the volunteer from the gang who takes those stats for him. So that's a cool little merc you can take for your Vansar. But yeah, another new thing that we've had in the House of Books are strong alliances. So these are basically different guilds, factions, houses, organisations that your gang can choose to align themselves with. There's benefits for being in an allegiance, and there's also some downsides, which gives you another interesting mechanic thing to play with, a little bit of narrative flair for the games. You don't have to form an alliance, and things can go wrong if you do join them, but I think they're really fun. First one we see introduced in here is the Promethium Guild. So these guys, they look after all the kind of the energy, the Promethium, all the plasma-based stuff within Necromunda. Vansar are quite heavily aligned with them, being kind of the main dealers of technology, and the benefit you get for being allied with them is that your flamer weapons and plasma weapons no longer count as scarce, and if they didn't already have the scarce trait, they then get the plentiful trait instead. So this is really good. With the amount of plasma you can put in your gang, being able to kind of nullify that scarce element is really, really cool. They can also have a pyromantic conclave come along for the battle. We'll see that later on in the book. One of my few criticisms of these books is that I wish these conclaves were on like the page after this, rather than being a couple of pages in. It just seems really messy from a kind of structure point of view, but yeah, we'll see them in a bit. So they're pretty cool. They come along, they can control the lighting a bit like the upgrade that we saw earlier. They're also crazy looking dudes with flamers, so that's always fun. Drawbacks, though, there is a cost to having those guys, so you've got to pay kind of like a tithe to them. You can choose to keep your money and not pay them, but there's a chance that the guys will kind of desert you. The next allegiance you can have are Imperial Imposters. So this is for kind of criminal warbands, and they're quite an interesting one. Once per week in your campaign, you can choose to make a gang not switch allegiance if it was going to. So say if a lawful gang was going to become an all unlawful band, they can choose to make that not happen. So you've got a bit of control over the balance of power in the Underhive, which is quite interesting. They also get a Master Charlatan. So yeah, he's really cool. He's like an assassin type character. Again, we'll see his profile in a bit. Frustratingly, it isn't on this page, but he's really cool. He comes along for the ride. If he is in a battle though, there's a chance that you become outlawed at the end of it, and yeah, he will have a bit of control over what missions you play as well, rather than having to pick. So that's a pretty cool option for your criminal gangs. And finally, we have House Catalysts. So these are the kind of information brokers. They can make people disappear. They deal with diplomacy. and they are really scary looking people. So yeah, faceless allies. If the benefit of being with them is that if a enemy gang captures one of your fighters and tries to sell them to the gangers, they can just eliminate all records of them, meaning that that gang will get no credits whatsoever for them. So pretty much just delete their profile, so they never existed, which is pretty cool. They also get to take the Carnival of Death with them, which pretty much consists of a crazy murder clown with a mastercrafted power sword and a mastercrafted long rifle, plus a mindless slave who's just frenzied. Really, really, really cool. Again, if the illustration's anything to go by, the models should be amazing. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do. Downside to having dealings with these guys, though, there is a chance that they'll take one of your Juves, mind wipe them, and you'll never see them again. So, one of the stronger guilds, but there is a considerable downside to being in an allegiance with them. So, yeah, really fun. I quite like this stuff. It adds a bit of flavour to the games. And then we get the profiles for those kind of guild-specific units. Like I said, I'd have rathered having these immediately after the page detailing the guild, rather than having all the guilds together, then all the profiles together. It is what it is, I suppose, but that's one of my few criticisms of this book, and all the House of books, that the allegiance pages are a bit messy, and I think they'd be a little bit easier to follow if they were immediately after it. So yeah, with the Pyromantic Enclave, like I say, they can kind of manipulate the lights, and you've got a kind of guy and some bodyguards who will join your battles. When they turn up, they'll be in addition to your normal gangers as well, so you could potentially go over the maximum number of gangers in the scenario, which is pretty fun. We then get the Master Charlatan. He's really cool, decent gear. He's going to be really tasty. Again, he comes along free for the ride, which is fun. And then we've got the Carnival. So absolutely bananas gear on the Masked Killer, proper assassin, and the Mind Frayed, who is just a mindless, poor unfortunate who's caught the worst of the guild and been used for other purposes. And like I say, there's a good chance your Juves just get dragged off at the end of the scenario and get put to that use. So yeah, some really fun stuff there with the House Allegiances. And then, like we've seen in the other House of books, we get quite a bit of supplemental stuff to expand your games as well. So you've got House Favours. You roll 2d6 and add 1 for each other gang that is a higher rating than you, up to a maximum of 3. And depending on what you roll, you will get different benefits. So some of them are bad. So you mind wipe, you could have one of your fighters completely removed if you're very unlucky. To be fair, if you're doing that, if you roll 2 1s and you haven't got any pluses because there's, you know, other enemy gangs higher than you, probably wouldn't gamble it because it's a little bit risky. But then to the good stuff, you can get a 2d6 times 10 worth of weapons. You don't get the credits added to your pool, you just get weapons to that cost. So you're probably best maximising what you can get with those credits. You can get a new gang member, you can get a free skill, and you can get some free Cybernetic Upgrades. So they'll be detailed in this section and they're really fun. We then get subplots if you are using the kind of subplots mechanic out of the core rulebook. There's some Vansar specific ones that you can take there, which is fun. We then get some new tech skills. So this is a new experience tree, skill tree that the Vansar can have. And again, they are all kind of based around the techie stuff that the Vansar do. So cold or calculating, when they take a cool or willpower, they can instead check against their intelligence, which is pretty fun. Gadgeteers, pretty cool. It lets them modify the weapons traits, add additional rules to the weapons such as knockback, shock, etc. Pretty fun. Mental mastery, they can't become insane. Photonic engineer, you can add 1 to the strength of las weapons. Bearing in mind that, you know, you can take las cannons and stuff. No, you need to add 1 strength to a las cannon, but options there. Radphaged, when they get hit with a gas or toxin weapon, they're going to roll 2d6 and discard the higher. So basically they're, because of the onsetting radiation that's leaking out of this STC, it's harder to affect them with kind of radiation and detrimental effects like that. And then Weaponsmith, any weapons that are equipped with loses the scarce trait, and if it didn't have the scarce trait, it gets the plentiful trait. So yeah, pretty fun. Some fun stuff there. One of my favourite bits of the new book, though, is the Technica. So these are, mentioned them briefly earlier, basically you can replace your organic components with cybernetical ones. You can also replace any injured arms, legs, head wounds, that kind of stuff. You can get rid of the negative effect and replace them with a cybernetic upgrade. So to do this, when you you level up, you gain a rank, as well as being able to advance as normal, you can also buy a piece of Technica. To do that, your guy's going to have to sit out a game, but when they're back in the fray, they will have their upgrade. So there's a cost for each of them, and there's 3 levels for each level of upgrade. So they will start with Alpha for 30 credits, Gamma for 40, Omega for 75 in this example here. You could just install the Omega straight away for 75 credits. However, if you install a lower one and want to upgrade, say you've got an Alpha and you want to go straight to Omega, you just pay the difference between them. So you'd pay an additional 35 credits to get that, which is pretty cool. Basically, the effects are cumulative through the levels. So for the cranial implants, for example, on an Alpha level, they're immune to insane. Gamma, they're immune to insane and intoxicated. And Omega, they also cannot become broken. So yeah, some really fun stuff. Bearing in mind that the new champion unit gets one of these free at the start of the game, and they only pay half price for the upgrades, means that those units can be really geared out with some fun stuff. The ocular implants give you all sorts of infocytes, monocytes, photo goggles, really cool stuff like that. It can't be disarmed on the syndextrous traits. We've got motive ones that make you move faster, negates any negative movement modifiers, lets you just climb up vertically with no penalty. Torsonic Cybernetica, your unarmed attacks have damage 3, your unarmed attacks have damage 3 and a +2 modifier to strength with melee weapons. And then the Omega one, in addition, they're considered to have suspensors fitted to it. And then the vascular one's really cool. +1 mod to toughness for the purposes of flesh wounds. And then they can reroll toughness checks. And then they can discard a flesh wound at the end of each phase. So they can become quite tanky with that. There's a little box out here discussing kind of WYSIWYG and the Cybernetica upgrades. You don't have to model them because it's assumed that they're subdermal. The technology is so advanced that it's indistinguishable than a normal off the rack human. If you want to, though, you can go to town. I can see some people doing some really cool cyberpunky Vansar with all their modded upgrades. So yeah, pretty cool. We then get the details of some Vansar Terrain pieces, such as a rad cannon emplacement. Again, we've seen this in the other books. We haven't seen any models for these, so a lot of these pieces you probably have to do a scratch build or kit bash. But yeah, some fun stuff as well for when you're defending your gang strongholds. We then get a pair of scenarios. Again, some fun stuff here. Deus Ex Mechanica, suitably named, details with a rogue AI that's possessed one of the gang members, and both gangs are trying to recover this rogue AI, which is pretty fun. And then Last Rites for the Machine. Basically, you've got a fading legend. He was a star in his time, but he wants to retire but go out in a blaze of glory. So this will be a gang member with gear worth up to 400 credits. So yeah, fully tricked out guy. Going up against him will be a bounty hunter or the like who's trying to take him down. So big, spectacular last job for this ganger who wants to retire or go out in a blaze of glory. So yeah, some fun stuff there, and both of those scenarios could easily be used by any gang as well without, too much modification. As ever, we get some gorgeous shots of the models, including some of the new kits, and yeah, I really like them. I mean, you could always go very elite with Vansar, but now with, you've got your 70 credit Juves, you could go super elite if you wanted to. Might not be the best bet for a new gang, but definitely gives you some options and variety on constructing them. As we've seen in most Necromunda books, you also get illustrations showing you what all the weapons look like, so you can find them on the sprue, which I think is a really nice touch. It makes it easier to spot what's happening during the game. And again, like ever, you get a comprehensive kind of stat line section detailing all the weapons, all the different rules for different armour and equipment and traits, and all that kind of stuff. Again, makes it a lot easier, it all being in the back of the book for you to reference. And then finally, again, as we've seen in the other House of books, they've printed the entire list of gang tactics as well. So if you miss out on those gang tactics cards, which do sell out super quick because they're super popular, at least you have the full list of gang tactics in the back of the book for reference. So yeah, that's a nice touch. And yeah, so that is House of Artifice, the Vansar book for Necromunda. I really like these books. I think they're a great thing for this game. I'm looking forward to every gang getting one, because at the moment the gangs, I think we've just got Cawdor and Delac left who haven't got one, who in kind of terms of options that they've got is a lot less compared to the other gangs. I think Games Workshop did a kind of a run-through schedule for next year, and I think in the first half of the year the other two books are going to be covered, and then I think they'll be releasing then some of the Allegiance kind of gangs and some of the other models that we haven't seen. So I imagine next year will be wrapping all that up, and then yeah, it'll be interesting to see where we go from that, because there's lots of fun new stuff they could invent, new houses, new gangs, maybe even expansions to the game. So yeah, that was a quick look at House of Artifice for Necromunda. Really, really cool. I do recommend checking it out. I've also done a full write-up review over on the website spruesandbrews.com as well, so make sure to check that out if you want a more kind of detailed look at the profiles. But yeah, until next time, we will see you all later.